Production support for the weekly special is provided by WTIU members. Thank you.
We're out of the studio today to discover the artists among us.
That's right. Coming up, a look inside a new interdisciplinary art center where artists and enthusiasts alike can learn, inspire, and create. Meet a group of luthiers who enjoy spending their time not only playing their instruments together, but also constructing them. We take a tour of the historic Miller House in Columbus, an artist who upcycles forgotten books into fun and useful products, and a lot more.
Right now on the weekly special. Hi, and welcome to the weekly special. I'm Joe Wren.
And I'm Pam Thresh.
Art abounds in the Hoosier State, and tonight we visit with artists of all types to talk about their works, their inspirations, and the business of art.
And what better place to start than right here at the Trained Eye Art Center in Bloomington.
That's right. This collaborative art studio is home to over 24 artists, and we had the chance to visit with a few of them to learn more.
Not easy being an artist. You're not just making art, you have to be administration, you've got to be an educator, you've got to plan out things and be an architect. I mean, being an artist is being like 8 other jobs.
Founder and president of Trained Eye Art Center, Adam Nahas, knows exactly what makes a successful artist. That's why he and a few creative others are settling down in a West Side warehouse to give Bloomington something it has always needed but never really had.
And I started looking around at different warehouses, and this place really popped out. It was on the Beeline Trail. And when we moved in here, this room right here was used as a recycling center, so it was really dingy, dirty, filled with trash. And we came in, we cleared the area out, painted all the walls. I built the loft up here, which is where most of our computers and illustration artists are. And then this room is primarily for painters. And then word just traveled around and artists started coming in. There's not a lot of other studio spaces in Bloomington.
Adam estimates that around 25 artists make their creative home at the studio, and each one has a different interest.
No happiness where there is no wisdom. There is no wisdom but in holiness.
I wanted a warehouse that wasn't just printmakers, it wasn't just glass workers. We have printmakers, we've got metal workers, sculptors, woodworkers, illustrators, graphic design people, web design people, all kinds of stuff. I mean, we've got guys that design bikes and architects, and you know, I mean, it's a wide variety of design. We've got a landscape architect here even. So I mean, we're trying to reach out to different forms of art, not just fine arts, but performance art. We've got people that do novels and mixed media and just all kinds of stuff. And I'm just hoping to continually expand.
And that expansion includes outreach to the community.
The beautification committee, we're trying to set forth, it's basically going to, you know, beat up areas of Bloomington, you know, like bridges and structures that are just kind of falling apart, and we're going to go there and mural them, repaint them, redecorate them. I know Mike Birchfield has been decorating like the bathroom at Ernest T. Butler Park. He did the 3rd Street stage, you know. Laura does private commissions for the Bloomington Playwrights Project. You know, we've got a lot of mural artists and painters here, and the beautification committee is a combination of garden space, green space, and painting space. And it's just to kind of like liven up the areas that are in Bloomington that are just kind of forgotten about.
Adam also sees the Trained Eye Art Center as being a place where those who have the interest but may not have the expertise can come and learn from local pros.
And a big portion of how we're going to be a non-for-profit organization and be a really big community involvement group is by giving back through education. And whether it's going to be art appreciation, art history, whether it's like a lecture base, or if it's going to be hands-on, like workshops. We'll have welding workshops, painting workshops, live model drawing classes, charcoal, eventually ceramics.
While serving one common goal, helping the community through continuing its appreciation of the creative culture.
In addition to studio space and, you know, do-it-yourself workshop space, being a member, being able to use the tools, I also want the artists to be able to educate the community about, you know, their specific media or you know, their specific talent.
And you can come out to meet Adam and all the artists in person this Saturday. The Trained Eye Arts Center will be hosting a grand opening benefit party that will include performances, hot air balloon rides, food and drink, and of course, art. Up next, we head to Indianapolis to meet a man who's going to great lengths to keep one culture's musical history alive. Kaunels from Estonia, Kuoklas from Latvia, Ancient Lyres from Novgorod, Russia. These are some of the plucked string instruments that Ein Haas builds at his home right here in Indianapolis.
Well, my parents were from Estonia, and I myself was born in Sweden. And I was very proud of my ethnic heritage, and I was looking for something that reminded me of the time when Estonians were independent, before they were conquered by the Germans and Danes and Swedes and Russians and so on. This instrument goes back that far, maybe even another 1,000 years, so it's a very ancient tradition.
Though he lives in Indiana, his roots are in the little Baltic country of Estonia, and his instruments reflect his culture.
When I see an example in a museum that's a different shape, I always wonder how it would sound. I need quite a few of them because we play in different keys, and these instruments really are only suitable for one key. The length of the instrument determines what key is suitable, so you'll see short ones and long ones. And the really primitive ones have only 5 or 6 strings. There's certain simple tunes you can play on those, but if you want to play something complicated, then you need 10 or 12 strings. The instrument is made from a block of wood, and then we use a chisel to hollow it out. And later we'll do another half step on that side. The drill holes tell you when to stop chiseling, because when you get to the bottom of those drill holes, then you need to slow down and start doing hand sanding instead. All right. With the big buck saw, what we were doing is cutting away some of the front where it drops down, so the strings are a little higher than the soundboard. And it's a really wide piece in some places, and it's very hard for one person to do it.
And that saw has nice big teeth, so it cuts faster than a one-person handsaw would.
I don't have a whole lot of time to make them for sale, so I'd rather have people make their own or help them make them. That's usually what happens. They do some of the steps themselves. And I like the idea of people making their own instruments rather than going to a store and buying something that a factory made or some professional instrument maker made.
This one I'm in the process of making. It's very similar to this, but only has 5 strings. I'm also in the process of making this one, which is in the Latgala style. It's for a friend of mine in Latvia who desires to have one made by me.
Ein has organized a group that call themselves the Hedgehogs, where they play some of the instruments that he makes.
The Hedgehogs is a group of Latvian and Estonian and other American players. We play at various ethnic events and international festivals. Churches invite us to play, and schools, libraries. Mostly here in central Indiana, but we've played in Ohio and Milwaukee and other nearby states. They're generally old folk songs that I find in books or imitate recordings that I've heard. My mother taught me some of them. They're generally from Northern Europe, Northeastern Europe in particular, around the Baltic Sea area, Scandinavia and the Baltic countries. If they sound good on the instrument, then I'll play it. It really goes back to this tradition that this was the most common instrument that the peasants in Estonia and nearby countries made, and it was widely played, and my ancestors would have played it, so I really feel like I'm in touch with my ancestors when I play these instruments.
I think the greatest joy in making the instrument is the way the wood feels when you're working it, and the resulting sound, and the fact that when you play it, it does wonders for your soul.
And if you'd like more information about Latvian instruments or music, check out Indiana University's Baltic and Finnish Studies Association. And now we head east to Columbus.
That's right, Joe. Columbus is a town known for its architecture, but until recently, one of its crown jewels wasn't even open to the public.
Well, the Miller House isn't the only modernist residence in Columbus. There were some other ones that were built here, a few even earlier. But nationwide, modernism was never a terribly popular style for homes, and certainly not at the level of this one.
In 1953, industrialist and philanthropist J. Irwin Miller commissioned rising star architect Eero Saarinen to build his new home.
Some architects really and truly tried to break completely from stylistic historical references, others not so dramatically. Eero Saarinen as an architect is a little harder to categorize because he didn't necessarily adhere to a style that went from building to building to building. He looked at every work of architecture as an individual problem that had a solution that was unique to itself.
The house was inspired by the pioneer of modernist architecture, Mies van der Rohe, and his 1929 World's Fair Pavilion. But Saarinen had the task of making the Miller House a home.
Eero Saarinen took some of those ideas and developed them in different directions to make it possible for those same stylistic elements to serve in a domestic setting that needed to serve the family's functions and needs and purposes. And so there needed to be places to cook and to sleep and all the things that go into family life. The Millers had 5 children, and in that way it differs from a lot of modernist buildings that immediately leap to mind, like the Glass House in New Canaan. We're in what's called the children's playroom. This was a space that was meant to be one where they could come together to study, do lessons, to play. The skylight system provides beautiful light in the house, and it crosses the house in a regular grid, and it brings light into even the areas farthest away from the windows. So the house is bright at almost any time of the day, even on a cloudy day like this.
Alexander Girard, the interior designer for the Miller House, helped bring life to the home with color and texture, often designing his own patterns for the curtains and rugs seen through the house.
He had a playfulness and a whimsical approach to his work that really meshed well with what the Millers wanted to see in their home, and it makes it highly personal that Alexander Girard liked to take things and customize them, make them special, make them appropriate for a particular commission or client. And you see a lot of that here at the Miller House. And it's, I think, Alexander Girard's presence within this high modernist interior that reaches out and provides something to people that they can respond to. The conversation pit is always an eye-catcher. You can see in a house like this, the walls are marble, the floors are travertine. It's not the sort of space where you can paint the house. And so Mrs. Miller was very interested in ways to keep the house enlivened. You can see that even in the kitchen, it features a rug on the floor that was designed for the space by Alexander Girard, and beautiful Venetian glass tiles on the backsplash behind the stove adds a really strong note of blue to this space.
The Miller House is an impressive balance of the clean geometry of modernism and the bright color of domestic life.
It's a beautiful house all around. It's been my great pleasure to show this house to people for the first time, and the comment that I get most often is that people feel that, although it is a modernist building and it's got a lot of those typical hard surfaces and stone, steel, that it has a real warmth to it in the decoration, and people respond strongly to that. They feel it's a livable modernist building. For the fan of modernist architecture, don't miss the Miller House because it rates at the top.
If you'd like more information about the Miller House or you'd like to schedule a tour of your own, go to imamuseum.org/Millerhouse.
And now Talia Halliday, an artist and a book lover, even though she may have a strange way of showing it.
I've always loved everything about books. So I was always making books for friends and for Christmas presents and for birthdays and things like that. And then when I found Etsy and I saw what everyone else was doing, I was like, I can do that. I can sell my books. I'm giving them away as gifts, and I had faith that I could do it. I went from having a 9-to-5 job to staying at home to be a mom. It's really hard to balance my time as a mom of 3, a wife, running a new business. I've really learned to time manage. I've learned to be much more organized in what I do. It's the only way I can manage to get it done. I make leather journals in about 5 different sizes, and then I also make hollow book safes in a variety of shapes and sizes. They hold flasks, Kindles and Nooks, iPads, iPhones, and then different shapes like hearts and horses and mermaids and who knows what else. And then I also make book clutches and clocks and lamps and planters, all out of books. All the books I get, I try to get them all discarded. They're headed to the dumpster. They can't be recycled because of their bindings. I really frequent library bookstores for their discard shelves, and then libraries have a big sale, and on their last day it's take them or leave them. And friends give me like their grandparents' books that they've acquired over the years and they don't want anymore. And occasionally I will buy books off eBay as well. I try not to because, like I said, my shtick is to sort of recycle books that have seen better days. But there are times when a customer might want a very, very specific book, and it's incredibly hard to find, you know, a specific title among thousands. A conduit is sort of a means to get from one thing to another. And the way I sort of justify conduit press is that all of my items you fill with something. You fill your journals with words and thoughts and feelings, and the journal is a conduit to this other place. It's cathartic. And my hollow books are the same. You know, you might hold your wedding ring or your wedding picture or your jewelry, and they're all conduits. I go to shows because I don't go to work every day, so I don't get to interact with my coworkers, so to speak. Art shows, craft shows, and fairs give me the opportunity to interact with my fellow artists and my artist community. The artist community here is amazing, and I love to be a part of it. They thought I was good enough to do it, and so suddenly I did too. And I met all these amazing people, and you know, they just inspire you. You know, you see what they do, and then you're like, I can do that too, and you inspire each other. I was at a show a few months ago, and a lady came up to me and she was looking through all my stuff, and I started talking to her, and she's like, your art is just so beautiful. I've never seen something so beautiful. It just makes me want to cry. And I was like, wow, because I don't make typical art. But there in the moment, I'd never received a compliment like that in my life. I love it. You know, it's my sanity. I don't know what I would do without it. Like when I'm done with something, I look at it and I'm like, oh, I made that. I think anyone feels that way when they finish something that they've made by themselves from start to finish, and then you hold it in your hand. It's just like your child, you know, like, I made that.
To check out Talia's latest creations, head over to conduit-press.com.
Now we head to Patoka Lake, where woodcarver Charlie Baker gives us a bit of insight into his work, carving lifelike birds.
Well, you got chip carving, you got relief carving, you got carving in the round, but with this, you're getting it where you want it to really look like the bird. I took a carving to an art gallery, and they told me that wasn't art. It kind of hurt my feelings, and I told her, I said, well, I guess if you get a donkey and put paint on his tail and let it swipe it against the canvas, I guess that's art. So, but I think it's art. A lot of times what I'll do is I photograph the birds. I've got a place in my shop where I've got a window and a limb sticking out, and they come up to the feeder and I get a real good close photograph of the birds. What I want to do is I want to show you how I get started. What I do is get a pattern of some kind, get the dimensions and the size and the top part of him and the bottom part, and I'll make me a pattern and I'll lay it on top of the block of wood. Then I mark it with a pencil Then you cut it like that. Okay, then you put it back together. Then you put some tape over it to hold it so it don't come apart. Then you cut it with your bandsaw that way. And then you take it apart like this. Then you get a piece like that. The carving is carving the bird from this point to this. And then you sand it all down. And after you get it all sanded, you start putting in your feathers. And once you get all your feathers marked in and cut, then you take a wood burner, and then you mark in your feathers with it, and you burn them in. And then you're ready to paint it. Just like this is going to be a gold fence, and I'm going to put this on my porch, setting up like it's a wild bird. Well, my older ones, they mean something to me. Like, you know, they're not as good as some of the newer ones I've done, but I wouldn't get rid of them for nothing.
Find us and like us on Facebook, where we'll have a link to the full calendar of events down at Patoka Lake. As one of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources' busiest properties, Patoka Lake hosts a wide variety of events, from cooking competitions to nature programs, and of course, artists and hobbyists sharing their work.
Up next in our exploration of Hoosier arts, we travel to Kokomo.
That's right. For over 100 years, Kokomo Opalescent Glass has been creating stained glass for artists across the country and around the world. On our visit to KOG, producer Ann Shea found out that not much has changed in that time.
Opened in the late 19th century, visiting KOG Glass today feels like stepping through the looking glass.
It's a business that was started here in 1888 by 3 entrepreneurs, and one of them was my great-great-grandfather. So the stock was handed down from generation to generation.
And through those generations, the more things have changed, the more they've stayed the same for the Kokomo business.
We have mechanized a lot of the movement of raw materials. Furnaces are more efficient, but the actual process of blending together 2 or 3 or 4 different colors of glass by hand with a fork remains much as it did when we got started.
The bulk of the work at KOG is in sheet glass.
That has green, red, and clear.
Inside the batch room, the color combinations are made.
This is where the raw material comes from. It's where the sand, soda ash, limestone, fluorspar, feldspar, and other chemicals is mixed together that makes glass.
Inside this furnace that descends to the basement are 12 pots of molten glass, all different colors. The process of turning it into a workable piece of glass has everything to do with timing and temperature.
We melt our glass at 2,560 degrees. At the time he takes it out with a ladle, the glass is probably 2,150 degrees. By the time he gets it to the mixing table, it's probably down to around 1,700. He mixes the glass, throws it into the roll. As it's coming through the roll, you're probably down 1,400. When it is out on the table, just before he shoves it in, you're probably 1,100 degrees. It varies from 1,000 to 1,200 degrees. The first 20 feet of that oven is the annealing process that strengthens the glass. When it comes out right here, it's down to in the area of 150 degrees. It's workable.
The glass is then cut into sheets, with the excess going into these barrels. Here, all glass is recycled. The warehouse stocks an infinite number of pieces of glass, all different color combinations.
It's really one of a kind when you're mixing it by hand the way we are. There are no 2 sheets of glass here that are alike, but you've still got that same blend. You've got the same proportions of color, just a little different marbleized look to it, and that's what makes it interesting, and that's the appeal to the artist.
And some of those artistic customers throughout the years include some big names.
Tiffany and Lafarge and Frank Lloyd Wright. Any place that stained glass has been used, we've probably been a part of it in some capacity.
So the next time you see a stained glass window in a church, at a home, or in a bar, there's a pretty good chance that at least a part of it started right here in Kokomo.
You can see the magic of glass making in person. KOG offers public tours daily at 10 a.m. Tuesday through Friday. And you can take a virtual tour and see the wide variety of products produced at the factory by visiting their website, KOG.com.
We'd like to remind everyone to visit our website at theweeklyspecial.org, where you can watch video from past episodes and see what's coming up next week. Plus, you can link to our Facebook page, where a community of viewers awaits, and you can get show news, link to all our guests, and see behind-the-scenes photos and videos. And that will do it for tonight's show. Thanks for joining us.
We leave you now with more from the Trained Eye Arts Center. Good night.
Production support for the weekly special is provided by WTIU members. Thank you.